Okay, today we have Ben Mulwana. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Jacob?
Doing really good. Um, I think that every time we talk, I get a little bit wiser, and it's just always exciting to hear what things are going on in your life. We were just talking a little bit before this started, and I was saying sometimes because you're very generous when you communicate with people. You make people feel very valued. And, it's easy to start thinking just about myself, because you ask questions like, how are you doing and stuff. And then I'm like, so how are you doing? You're like, well, and then you drop the bomb on like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, you tried out for American Idol. Like I had no, just all these different things going on. It there's always some excitement, something for me to anticipate talking with you. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast talking about some dreams that maybe you've had in the past, dreams that you're walking in right now. I know that you're. I even said earlier that I feel like I'm following in your coattails with a lot of things musically. We used to play together in Wisconsin, and played a lot of bass for Ben, and just an amazing vocalist, guitar player, and also entertainer. You just know how to draw a crowd in, and now I'm doing my own shows here in the Quad Cities, and it was amazing to me how big of a hurdle of like, oh man, like it's a lot to command an audience for 2 3 hours. And so I think that you've got a lot to share as far as what dreaming has meant for you in your life, and things that you're doing now, things that you like to see in the future. Um, what is what is what has that meant for you? And you can start wherever you want, whether that's the high school kid in. I don't know if you went to grade school in Kenya and high school, although you're from Uganda. Was it high school?
Yeah, just high school actually for from Kenya. It was just high school, but all the rest of primary school and actually even a bit of secondary school was all in Uganda. And then just college here. Um, but yeah, it's been a long time. And honestly have been, thinking a lot about like just when we talked and the concept of dreams and dreams that we're walking into or that we're hoping, come true or that we're working towards, I think is a very interesting concept or just a very interesting question uh, because quite honestly, I feel that for me, probably last year or maybe even the year before that, I feel like I got to the end of like the end of my dream. It feels weird to say it feels weird to say that because
Yeah.
I think I always think of dream as something that is like is something you just hope that is you're like, oh, it would be nice if this comes true one day, but you're not really under any delusion that it might come true. Like that's normally what I think when I think of dreams, right?
Yeah. What was that dream?
No, and there were a couple things that I've always wanted to do when I got into music, and I told myself, I want to open for national act, I want to play in these spaces, some of these rooms that I had been to watch my favorite artists play in, and I thought, man, it would be really nice to play here, maybe one day, but just really saying that more as a like if this dream ever came a reality, that would be like winning the lottery for myself.
Yeah.
And not really thinking that, I'm gonna work and play in this room. Like that's absolutely not. Um, and then, thinking things like that, I'd love to do an album one day. That would be really cool. But that was more of like a dream, like of a much, much younger self to say that, okay, that would be really cool. And then I think last year and maybe the year before, is when I started to really think that, okay, let me just let me just work and see where the work goes. And if the work goes, into making some of these dreams a reality, then so be it. But otherwise, we just keep going because we're not necessarily doing it to get to these places, or to achieve some of the things that we want to achieve, but really doing it because we love it, and it's something that we enjoy doing. It's something that wakes us up in the morning, something that we just love.
Yeah.
Music, sharing music with people, sharing stories with people, and all the above. And so, found myself last year opening for These Sacred Souls, which was like it's just an amazing band. Love their music, and actually opened for them in a room that was kind of a bucket list kind of. It would be great, a dream venue, I should say. And then all of a sudden, here we are, like, playing in this room, or the Shitty Barn, which was also kind of a dream venue, but all of a sudden, you know, there I was, like, doing a headline show there. And so I think the word dream is so interesting, because I felt like some of the things that I had only dreamed of doing um happened, and then I'm like, man, so
So
what
what
now?
now?
And we just,
Wow. Yeah.
you know, um, yeah. So I think it's an interesting question. I love that you asked it that way.
Yeah. How does that affect your future? Um, Not that we can control our futures by any stretch of the imagination, but how do you view dreaming now? Because, I think if we only think dreams are for daydreaming or dreaming at night, and not for actually seeing realized, then like you pointed out, our perspective is different. So does it change the way that you dream, or does it change your expectation now for, well, I've also dreamed about doing this and this and this, so I can expect maybe that'll happen?
Yeah, I think it doesn't. I mean, I think, I guess the way it changed how you dream is maybe not necessarily thinking about it like this. I think it wipes out more room for the bucket list, right? To say, like, it would be really, it check this one off, and create more room to add more things to the bucket list, I think, is mostly how I look at it. But keep doing what you're doing, and keep doing it for the reasons that you're doing it, and not necessarily for the reasons of the bucket list, right? Because if at all you play, and or if at all you create, if at all you sing, if at all you share, and it takes you to this place, then amazing. And that's what, that's kind of the goal of that. But the getting to that place should never be the goal. So I think that's what I've consistently learned, is like, getting to the place should never be the goal. It should just be um doing what you love, and doing it at maybe a grander scale, trying to share with, more people, or trying to share with, um, you know, trying to change more people's lives, things like that. I think that's normally now how I dream. Is like, okay, um, let me try this, because I think it would be amazing, because I think that someone would really respond to it, and keeping it moving in that way.
Yeah, that's great. What's funny is, the way that you present most of the things that we've been talking about is kind of like, it would be great if that happened, but I think, um, which I've had that approach in my life a lot. Like, I don't know, it'd be nice if that happened, but a lot of times I don't see things happen because I haven't. I feel like there's always a sacrifice that comes with, actually seeing something through, seeing it, a dream come alive. And I think many people would be very, surprised just from, you come across very, chill and just responsive to the moment of, okay, this is where we're at. But I think people would be surprised as to what you've walked through to be where you are, to stay where you are. And you've shared some of those stories with me in the past of coming over here, staying over here. Um, I was wondering if you'd be interested in sharing maybe some of those trying times in your life of like, well, I kind of have to make a choice here and push through, or I'll just have to go back to doing this.
Yeah, I think so some of those stories actually end up some of those times end up making me, not some of them, all of them make me more grateful for where things are now. I think one of the things that we were talking about is just what I went through to be able to stay in America, not necessarily for music or not necessarily for a job or not necessarily for any of those things, but really my main reason for staying was to be able to be with my wife. Uh, my
Yeah.
wife, my wife, obviously we met here, we met in college. Um, she was everything okay?
All right, can you see me? I hate to cut you
Yeah,
off in this. Theo's here. Give me 1 second.
no problem.
It's such a great story. Give me just 1 second, okay? I'm gonna
Yeah, no
get him
problem.
some water.
All right.
I knew I should have gotten him some water before we started, and thought he might be thirsty. He came out
You're okay.
asking for
It's
it.
all
So,
right.
man, it's such a great story and a focus. So, if you could just start over with, um,
Yeah.
where you,
No,
yeah,
yeah, no problem. No, I was saying that, one of the stories we were talking about is how I went through 2019, um, applying for my permanent residency to stay in America. And it wasn't, I wasn't trying to stay in America for music's sake. Obviously I enjoy music and I enjoy, playing here. It wasn't for job's sake. I do, like my job. I do like what I get to do here. I think a lot of people normally, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. I don't, um, America is cool, but I also really love my country,
yeah, yeah,
and it's warm all the time, and people are friendly, and I enjoy being at home, right? And that's where all my family is. But I wanted to stay, you know, for my wife. I love my wife, and I want to stay here, and I wanted to be able to go back and forth and see my family in Uganda, and also start a family here with this beautiful woman. And so, I went through that. But as I was going through that, there is some real opportunities that came my way um, that I was not able to complete, and that I was not able to completely take part in because the process was still going on. So legal issues obviously made it so that I couldn't uh, participate in some of these opportunities and end up losing out. And I think that in a weird way, I know we talked about it in things like The Voice and American Idols, and we had talked about it a bit. And I honestly do not look at it as, even at the time, as much of a bummer as it was, I did not necessarily look at it as such. Um, and I somewhat like go back to it, and I think it happens for a reason. Like all these things happen for a reason. And we were talking about how we make plans and God laughs, and we make um, moves to try and go from one place to another in terms of either career or family, and it comes down to what God wants for you. And so you know, I go back to that moment. I go back to, moments where like I had everything right in front of me. I had the opportunity, everything had gone through, and then it coming down to a technicality that, hey, you're not a permanent resident here, you're not a citizen, and you can't take part in this unless you're that. And I think about that and I say, well, I think that just meant that this path was not for me.
Yeah.
And so moving on, like, I try not to linger on moments like those. I just move on and uh, see what else is out there and see what else, is there to do and to be done. And that was it. So yeah, that's something that we're talking about. I recall.
Yeah. I think when I hear you sing and play, there's such a depth to it, but it a lot of times just feels like you've just been sitting somewhere for hours and you've had all the time to think about why a song means something to you, why what you're saying is really important. And I think people would be surprised as to how much you get done, from just all the IT work to all the business side of having a full band and booking shows. You talked about traveling to different places. Is there just in the light of talking about like sometimes things they don't always come packaged like how we want, is there is that your experience where you feel like you just have a whole ton of time, or do you feel like you things are more condensed and like, well, I'm in this moment, I have to make decisions in this moment? And what's kind of been your approach with just the decisions you've made and musically? Do you feel like it's all do you kind of get what I'm trying to ask here? Like, do you feel like it
Yeah,
all just kind of
yeah.
comes like, well, just one thing at a time, or it's like, man, I wish I had more time for this, but this is the time I have and I'm just going to squeeze every ounce out of it?
Right. I think uh time like money is currency, and we can always wish we had more of it, right? So like we'll just put that aside because that's just a thing that we'll never ever solve, right?
Yeah.
Um I think that with that, we have to budget. Um, just like money, we have to budget it. And knowing that we don't have enough of it, uh, knowing that everything requires a specific amount that is non-negotiable, we need to allow the time that we have for the things that we prioritize, right? So I think it comes down, for music side, I actually normally do a trip, once a year, um, to, a week-long trip where I completely like disconnect completely, like, forget your phone, forget anything, just be done, out, completely gone. And I use that time, like you mentioned, I use that time to sit and think about, not necessarily just like think about a new song or trying to write a new song or try to um, come up with something. It's not necessarily for that. And if that is what comes out of it, awesome, good. Uh, if that's not what comes out of it, it's just maybe what comes out of it is getting your campus bearings, recalibrated, making um, your bucket list a little longer, or sitting down and processing all the things that you've been putting on the back burner and taking one thing at a time, and sitting down really thinking about it. I think normally when I've given that time, at least for myself, um, a lot of things have become uh, more a part of me. I've been able to embrace a lot of things. I've been able to think about a lot of things. and then that comes out through the music. I think that comes out not just through the music, but through the art, through just conversations with people. Because it's one thing to sit here and to sit and talk to anybody, and sit here and talk with you. If I have a billion other things on my mind, then I can't be here.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's one thing to sit and sing in front of people, and that's awesome, and you can do a good job. It's another thing to sing in front of people, and you have a mountain load of other things that you have not processed,
Right.
and I think it shows. And so I think allocating time has been um, very key in trying to kind of continue maneuvering this thing with music is allocating time for things. And that doesn't mean you have to go away all the time. I don't mean to say that like
Yeah.
everybody needs to take. Sometimes that means sacrificing some time instead of listening to music in the car, sit in silence as you drive somewhere and don't be afraid of facing some of the thoughts that have been in your head that you've not had the time for. Just sit with them and make friends with them and go through them. So yeah, I think time management is has been kind of key.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit earlier about um there's kind of a mystery to Ben Mulwana. I think when people talk to you, when they hear you play, there's such a depth that's unspoken, and I think that's a really drawing quality. And we were joking a little bit earlier before recording about you mentioned, like, with posting to social media and marketing, like what you've had for breakfast isn't, we're kind of the same, and like that doesn't really seem like the most important thing to share with people.
Right.
But I just love hearing, I know you like to do um, darkroom photography, all these different creative, like I love the whole get away for a week and really just have that time, because we need that time to process things, to write, to write things out. Do you ever have a practice of writing things down? Is that important to you? Do you keep it in your
Oh
head?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And, I love, well, it's kind of journaling, yes. I think it's a very good habit to have to write things down. Actually do a strange thing where I just talk talk to myself, like say thoughts out loud, which is another form of journaling. Um, I know I rumble on sometimes too. I mean, so sometimes it's better to just say, even just be sitting along in the car driving to work or something, um, have full on conversations. It looks crazy. I'm sure it sounds crazy if at all anyone has ever, hidden in my car or forgotten that someone is sitting in the car with me. But
Yeah.
it's one of those it's one of those where you just kind of sit and talk. And to be honest, I'll tell you, one of the things I loved about our relationship, just as you and I, not just as musicians but as friends, is you one of the people I was able to always talk to as if I was talking to a voice in my head, right? Just being completely open and honest and saying like, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm struggling. And this is, I was able to share like some, details with you that I don't share with just anybody. And I think that honestly is part of journaling, because if you can't be honest with yourself, right? So like, I think
Yeah.
it's also taught me that it's very important to have people in your lives that you could be just honest with, open with, because it then helps you also as an artist, once you're able to always speak honestly with people and with yourself.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I think we're both similar in we're both very busy, but we're both also very in the moment. And so I know we've texted each other a few times since we don't live close anymore. It's like, oh man, wish we lived closer. And
Right.
I think that's a huge part of why, because we could always call and chat, but there's just something about having people right in your life that are making a habit of being honest with themselves. Because I think it's really hard to personally, it's really hard to share dreams with people who aren't able to be really honest with themselves about things that maybe. And I think a huge one is being honest about things that we've dreamed about in the past and they haven't worked out as planned. Because I think that can be such a huge growth stunter for being able to dream big, to be able to move forward and be able to share that with people. And I think that you even in your music, you make it a habit to express, you know, I hope this finds you. I hope this finds you well. Like letters to you, letter to you. And so I think that that's a huge key, I guess. And this will be our last talking point here. But how's that been for you? How has that helped or hurt over the years, just to be transparent and open with the things that you're either dreaming about or the things that you've dreamed about in the past, and then they haven't ended up how you expected them to? What's been your experience with sharing that with the world or with people around you?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't think, I think there's a lot of things that we don't see immediately around us. So with that said, I don't know if it has hurt anything. Um,
Yeah.
right. But I think I can see where it has helped. I think it's helped me just in art, in my music in general. I think it has helped me a lot. To get to share honest songs, right?
Yeah.
To get to share honest art, but also to be able to sing honestly. I think one of the things we talk about a lot, uh, which is just some other musician friends, we were sitting down and talking, and this is like before a show, and um, one of them was like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna write this song about uh, um, like an addiction." And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, like that's like okay, yeah. Like, well, what's the addiction? And I'm like, well, the song's gonna be well. Christian said like the song's gonna be about like nicotine. I'm like, oh, cool. Do you smoke? And he was like, no. I'm like,
Right.
okay. So is this he's like, well, yeah, I have other addictions, but like the closest like people can relate with is nicotine. It's like the most addicted. A lot of people are addicted to like smoking and nicotine. I'm like, okay, but you don't smoke though. It's like, yes, but and I understand it. I wasn't trying to, make things difficult for this gentleman. And I was just like, well, but like what business do we have about writing about something that we don't necessarily understand? It almost feels like someone who smokes might be like, what business do you have writing about my addiction, you know? And I understand that an addiction is an addiction and it hits us all differently. But I think where that honesty really comes in is don't be shy to say whatever your addiction is. I mean, it might be embarrassing, but what's the point of art if not to bear our souls, right? So it's just, just go for it. It might not be relatable, fine, but it will be honest. And when you sing it, someone will really know the point of what you're trying to make because the emotion will be real, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I think that's where I think being honest has helped. Um, I cannot say where it has hurt because if it has, it's been far enough away from me that I haven't seen it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great point because obviously there are people all over the states and over the world who are songwriters and they're working on crafting. How can I have something that connects with people? But when I see like views or subscribers or listens for Ben Mulwana, I see an actual number of people who are feeling connected to Ben Mulwana, not just an idea that you had that's popular. Like, oh, I can relate to that idea of being addicted to nicotine, but oh, I can relate to Ben Mulwana, you know? So that's one thing that I really appreciate about your pursuit. I love what you said about what's the point of art except to, what did you say, to bare our souls?
Right.
And it's such an intimidating thing. But I think it is rewarding, and I think uh, sometimes it seems like a slower and steadier path. But I feel like what I love about seeing the things that you're creating and producing and putting out into the world is it's those moments, even in a busy schedule, and you can't always be around the people who are listening to your music, but it to me, it's like you're creating those really intentional, deep moments, and that has such a correlation to the honesty that you put into your art.
Yeah, yeah. And in I I hate to sound preachy, but I think that we need to do more of that. I think be honest with ourselves and with the things that we do because it will bleed out into what we put out. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thank you so much for sharing. I know that you have a full length album that you just released, Mr. Mulwana. And I know it's online. People can look at that. And I know people can go to benmulwana.com. Is there anything else you wanted to share with anything you're doing right now or anything that's exciting that you wanted to share?
Yeah, no, I'm just a lot more shows coming up. Is another single releasing either at the end of the year or at the beginning of the next one. I don't know for sure yet, but keep up and come to a show and let's meet, let's chat, let's be friends.
Sounds great. Well, I'm
Okay.
personally looking forward to seeing you soon, hopefully sooner than later. And thanks so much for taking some time to be on the podcast.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, talk soon.
All
Bye.
right, bye.